So whatever anxiety or stress or worry or despair that I'm feeling in this moment, oh, I'm having a taste of the human condition. This is source consciousness having a taste of the human condition. Because as soon as I get into, oh, this is my problem to solve, Rebecca's feeling these things today, and I need to get out of this, I'm even more deeply entrenched in it then. Because then if it's a personal condition to me, I've taken possession of it. And what we want to do is walk lightly and not possess our experiences, not possess our thoughts, not possess our patterns or our traumas, but rather see them as human condition. Or we're having a taste of the human condition today.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu Taoist Master San Qing, and it is another amazing day. It's good to be me. I want to welcome another incredible fellow Aussie who happens to also be a wisdom teacher and a conscious creator. And I know she doesn't want to be called it, but she is a catalyst, a conduit to a divine source of information that helps people guide their own purpose and self-realization through these wisdom teaching on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state. I want to welcome to the podcast Rebecca Dawson. How are you, my dear friend?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here. It's beautiful to weave a new conversation with you today.
Yeah, it's so different. We're talking about the channel. We can do an abbreviation of your journey, but I'm sure there's plenty of those things on the internet. And quite frankly, every time I do an interview, I'm like, they want to hear about how did I get from here to here, and I'm like, let's just get into the fun stuff. It always ends that way. So we can go over that briefly if you want to, but furthermore, I want to get down with, the power of direct source information, how you really acquired that state of knowing through your own transmission. Is it evident right now? Absolutely. Any of my students, disciples, 126 subscribers can experience that visceral transmission right now. So this is a sort of an autonomic sort of state of awareness. I would love you to just give us a little abbreviation of how you got here.
Okay. The now moment we shall describe and
Mhm.
stretch it out a little bit. So I guess I'm what most people would call a channeler. Um, and that started for me quite young. I was 17 when I had my first spontaneous experience of that. And it wasn't something that I planned or asked for. Um, and so really the next years after that was trying to make sense of that and how to actually live in what it felt like was living in two different worlds, because I had so much coming out of me, but also I was living in a world that didn't seem to match what was coming out. Particularly because when you're becoming a conduit for wisdom, or when you are the expression of wisdom, it's never just, for me at least, hearing words that are coming out of my mouth. It's an embodiment experience. So I'm having a visual, multidimensional experience that is happening as that state of channeling is emerging. So I'd like to frame it a little bit differently than how I have done in other conversations. So rather than talk about the human experience of how that happened, I would rather describe my experience of awareness with it and how that happened over time. So, in the beginning, my metaphysical investigations into things, I was always interested in things like that from the time I was a young child, because I could see energy fields and um, relatives that had passed away, that sort of thing. I could see into the body and all the organs quite young. Was really trying to understand how this was happening. And my metaphysical understanding at that time, through everything that I had read, was that what was happening was that there was another entity or another source of consciousness that was coming from out here into my body. And that was the best way that I could describe what was happening. So, because of that, my view of what was happening was that there were these masters and teachers that were coming into my body, and my body had to adjust. So, in the beginning, it was quite cumbersome, and my voice took some time to change and express. and I would get quite tired afterwards. And the more that wisdom began to become expressed in this way with these masters or these teachers, they started to show me that what was actually happening, and this took some years because I had to shift my own awareness. What was actually happening was that different aspects of source consciousness were coming out of me. So it wasn't that something separate was coming in, it was something that I was inherently a part of that was choosing to express itself through me. So when my awareness moved more deeply into that, I started to see that this identity as Rebecca was just the tip of a branch of a tree, and that it was the tree itself that was expressing itself through the face of me or through the identity of me. And in that way, the channeling really shifted more into an embodiment experience where I just kind of relax back into the one and something emerges through me, without any attachment to it and without needing to somehow be worthy of it or ascend to be able to understand it. It was kind of the opposite. It was really just relaxing back into it and not even needing to have any ownership over it at all. So that was, I think, the big transformation and journey for me in terms of what I do is the movement from a duality way of looking at it into a unified experience of looking at it, where the masters are an aspect of me as much as I am an aspect of them. So that's how I would like to describe that journey for me.
Love it, love it. I mean, if you, we go back to the same question I ask everyone. You sure you weren't a Taoist in a past life? For the simple reason of what is very obvious for a Taoist seeker. Everything is a bellows. The lens of reality is a bellows. You're contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same
Yes.
time. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, is to acquire the vesica, the center point. And so when you find that center point, which is within anything that is energy potential, has that center point, which brings pause to what we call the Wu Ji, which is the primordial mother. Between the breath in and the breath out is the center point, which we call perfection manifest, the creation of the diamond. And those facets are elements of your relationship with your teachers. I have the same. I have over 171 different teachers I channel. That's a dialogue that I have with the monologue, which is the primordial mother, true source information. And I love the way you describe it because it's a unified state that is frequentially beyond the electromagnetism of this duality. And that's where you'll find that center point, which we call Wu Wei, effortless act, effortless effort, which someone would call the flow. And then
I
you get
love that.
flow, right? You get into that flow and poof, you're off to the races. I love I've done hundreds of these podcasts. I have probably 50 or 60 dear friends that are channelers, real channelers, like yourself, not the bullshitters that are waving their head around and they're calling in the Palladians. And I realized that they had a very short-lived career as an actor. And if I do this enough and tell people that the world is going to end, people are going to follow me. This is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with right now, I think. For me, doing this 32 years, I see it. Actually, Lee reminded me, he goes, when did you start this whole Bob? It's like 89. And he goes, it's actually 36 years. That's when I was starting. I'm like, well, thank you, Lee. You need to update your resume. And I'm like, there's nothing more profound. You have been doing this your whole life, pretty much consciously from your own admission. It's really profound when you understand that the nonsensical, finite ego state is not real. And that, if you step out of the way and you're not participating with the distraction, what we call the distortion, the dukkha, my dear friend, a Buddhist monk would call it the dukkha, which is electric potential that's been created with your attention intention. You are now forming that. And this is a vibratory frequential state that we're now, once you obtain that resonance, as any manifesting coach would say, you got to find that resonance. Well, that becomes an effortless action, even though, how is that possible? It's redundant. Jifu, that doesn't make sense. Well, of course it does, because the action is the breath. That's it. Once you acquire that, you are unified. You are unified, but it's you have just burnt in this incredible internal architecture, energy potential that is accessed at will consciously. Your conscious and unconscious has merged together as one, and you know who you are. That's so powerful. It's so powerful, my friend. And the way
Well,
you just
that's
that, yeah,
well, that's a little bit of a paradox too.
yeah.
Sorry to interject there. It's
No,
a little
no.
bit of a paradox too, because we can say, well, you know who you are, but as source consciousness, that the great I am is the great mystery. So we
Oh,
kind of walk that fine line between, yes, I am in the embodiment of all that is, and therefore, I exist. But then there's that you tip slightly into the great source consciousness, and it's a mystery that's not meant to be solved. And I think that's the challenge every day in the human experience with this for me, is that my identity has to be willing to die every day, because I can get very invested in, well, I'm Rebecca Dawson and this is what I need to do and this is what I need to eat and this is where I have to show up today. But I also have to be willing in every moment to die to that and say, well, I have no idea what source consciousness is doing today. I have no idea if my identity is going to continue to exist today, what's going to emerge next. And that's the challenge. And I'm sure for every human in this world, we oscillate between feeling the expansiveness of wisdom and then feeling the compression of the human condition. And I think for me, my practice with that, with contracting back into the human condition, as we all do on a daily basis, is to remind myself that's not personal to my identity. So, whatever anxiety or stress or worry or despair that I'm feeling in this moment, oh, I'm having a taste of the human condition. This is source consciousness having a taste of the human condition. Because as soon as I get into, oh, this is my problem to solve, Rebecca's feeling these things today, and I need to get out of this, I'm even more deeply entrenched in it then. Because then if it's a personal condition to me, I've taken possession of it. And what we want to do is walk lightly and not possess our experiences, not possess our thoughts, not possess our patterns or our traumas, but rather see them as human condition. Or we're having a taste of the human condition today. And to me, that's been the singular greatest thing that's enabled me to then relax back into source more easily. Because we all oscillate all the time.
yeah. I would agree. You had me at hello. Um, it's fascinating how people master their own state. I would have a very healthy discussion about the I am. That's a complete contradiction, in my opinion, because I've never witnessed in all these years, I witnessed physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healings, and I'm nothing. I'm the present moment. There is no title. So when you form this finite ego state of personality, I always tell people it's not a good idea to erase your personality. Me, I like driving my side by side in the desert at 100 miles an hour. I love eating bonbons and watching Netflix. That has nothing to do with me participating with instant unification. And so I would never change my personality, nor do I need to beat it into submission, because once you change frequency, it's now. It doesn't
Agreed.
require your participation. You do not need to be aware. And so when people say I am, you are separating yourself. Even though people go, no, that's making it ability. For you to obtain true physical healing, like, the type of stuff I'm used to is like watching gangrenous flesh turn back to pink in color in 40 minutes, bones fuse, gashes seal in front of my very eyes, This is the type of stuff that got me curious 30 years ago. And I was like, hang on, I'm onto something. And this is the type of way you cultivate and train in these energy potentials. And it's like, you can always, the human condition is exactly that, right? It's like, it's a condition, it's a limitation, it's a boundary that you can participate in if you choose to, which is where psychological psychiatry therapy is the very head screw that separates you, that makes you think that the mind is separate from the body. When someone goes mind, body, spirit, oh, here we go. Let's just analyze things and make it really diluted. Yet when you know, that means that you're not thinking. If you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. That's where, some of the most incredible magic I've participated in or witnessed is the illusion that you're listening to my personality rambling, but I'm operating, as you would put it, all cylinders are firing, all dimensions are now. That means that if you talk it from a physicist perspective, I always use this analogy. It's like light to wave to matter to particle, with your attention, intention, realizing you're cutting from the cloth of perfection, the unified state, what we call the currency of this realm, electromagnetism. This is a dualistic perspective. For you to unify, you raise above that. You merge with the very frequential state, your resonance, and people remember. The second they're around you, they listen to your wisdom teaching, they go, holy shit, I'm here. I remember this. Holy crap. That charge, the merging and oscillating of you and I with the chills coming through our physical body, that resonance right now is the very evidence of us communing together. You are me, I am you. We are one. And that I am is the only thing that it's like a spiritual trigger for me. When people, it's like it's just like, the secret. It's like, I want you to give me your values. Excuse me. That's the very reason why this shit doesn't work for most people. There are no values. It's a frequential resonance. You acquire it through cultivation. I teach people how to merge the alchemy of yin and yang and create that unified state at will and do crazy stuff that is the whole acquisition of your attention. You want to acquire healing for the purpose of someone becoming whole. And once they become whole, they're not distracted with their personality. They just realize that you become in servitude and selfless for the raising of humanity. They're realigning or reunited, and it feels so good with that unified state, which is love. And that's that throwaway, right? I'm sure you hear this all the time. I mean, that when I said you had me at hello, it's like, I've been enjoying the frequency you've been transmitting since we started this conversation. It's crazy. It's insane. And it's not something you have to consciously go, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to call in my guides and I'm going to draw in this energy. You're doing it. It's you. That's who you really are. And you're not having to play with the finite mind or anything of that nature. That's the default. That's the autonomic process that people love, which is getting into that. And I'm a Pepsi challenge guy from the 80s. And so show me. I don't know whether you're familiar with that. The Pepsi challenge in America is you get Coke and Pepsi, they put a cup over it, and the person drinks it and goes, which one is better? Oh my goodness, I love the taste of this. And he pulls a cup over and goes, oh, it's Pepsi. I'm like, I'm a show me guy. Show me. I want to get a taste test. I'll do a Pepsi challenge with anybody because it's that now frequency. You have created that. It's like, there's so much wisdom. It's like, I don't need to hear anything about any of your teachers and what they're saying. I know the transmission is beyond this electromagnetism, which I think is just profound. And you do it effortlessly. That's that effortless action. You are just now. And do you think that there's a process, because you've known this since you were a young child, have you acquired? From me, I witnessed all this crazy stuff at the beginning of my conscious journey. And then I went to Taoism through my own teacher to help people use mechanisms and methods to the madness to acquire that. It's what we call the Fajin, the substance. It's
Right.
palpable.
Mhm.
Did your teachers give you a specific method that you use that helps you stay there, or you just get out of the way and you're just there?
Well, feel, and I'm very privileged and blessed to have brought so many messages to so many people over the years, 30 years now, that through those messages, I have taken a few hints and really listened and and done what I can to embody that wisdom. I do want to say that I did go through an experience in my 20s where I went away from and I just really go within. I wanted to have an experience of, at that time, my my vernacular, my language for it was to really know God and to really, what is this? And I had been reading about mystics of the Dark Ages and certain people throughout time who'd had these illumination experiences. And I wanted that. I wanted to know that. And I knew that I couldn't get it out there because the information that I had tried to find for many years wasn't there. So I knew I had to do it inside. And so I would sit in meditation for, 8, 10 hours a day. And I would feel myself getting close, I'd really feel the vibration really start to buzz. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so close. I'm so close. I'm on the threshold. And I would almost feel all the energy in my body move to the front of my body, like, "Oh, I'm about to dive in. It's about to happen." And suddenly I'd lose it. Or my what was happening was my mind would pursue, and in that I would move further away from it. And I think I'd done this for a few weeks, and I was just getting to the point one day it was super hot, the sun was coming around where I was. And I just swore and I said, well, if this, I give up. And in that moment, it happened. And it was an experience that lasted for 4 days of being in complete oneness. And I was everything. I became everything. And it was a really extraordinary experience. And I've had a couple of experiences like that since, but not to the profound nature of that. I think 'cause it was the first time. And of course, what I realized in that moment was that was at the moment that I actually gave up that it happened. And so the big lesson in that for me, if you want to call it a lesson or awareness, was that we already are that. We already are unified. We already are in that state of consciousness. We just have to relax back into it because what the mind will do is it will try to pursue it and it takes us further away from it. So, in that regard, my meditation practices changed after that because rather than, I always used to feel the energy push in front of my third eye because I could see colors and auras and everything. So I would naturally do that. I had to retrain myself to pull it into the back of my head. So even now, when I step into that deeper state we call channeling, I just relax into the back of my brain,
Mm.
and that's it. And then everything just comes out, and I get to watch it from back here. So I'm not filtering it. I'm observing it, if that makes sense.
Oh,
So, yeah, it's the relaxing into it. Relax.
well,
Your brain can't do it.
it's a hallmark thing because you move past the fear. I have no fear. I don't even know what that is. And part of some of the ancient practices I've taught, being ordained in 2 lineages of Taoism, one of them is exorcisms. So you create your reality. And actually, I haven't done. It's so exciting. I haven't done exorcisms in probably over a decade because it just transmits as it is. Because the creator, you're bringing this frequency to your front door, and if you're conflicted by what it is or how it got there, you need a little help, a little help on the way. And so I just recently interviewed a guy who's been completely over the whole psychiatry thing, and he's been basically saying it's been a mafia sort of scenario for decades that he's been aware of, where
Mm,
head screwing human beings to be separate. And so I've got 2 or 3 people I'm going to work with and exercise that stuff, and it's all this whole profound shift when that happens, and whether it may come in the form of an identity of bipolar or personality disorder or schizophrenia, when that shit goes down, it's off like the races. You see a transformation of someone that you just cannot believe is possible. It's just technique. It's a technique of how that, just the way you mastered that technique, realizing I need to sit back into it. That's that fearlessness and selflessness, which is what that return from yin to yang, from the absorption of all colors, the emission of all colors is that center point, is what we call the sacrifice. Everyone goes, I don't want to die. No, the sacrifice is the very gift that is your offering.
It's
It's
that
the
sense of
threshold.
separation that dies. It's the
Ah,
it's the it's the urgency to uphold who you think you are.
right.
You know,
Which is
even so many people in spiritual inquiry, they seek wisdom or they seek awareness so that they can have the tools to reinforce who they are in life and to protect this. And really need to be willing to
right.
to give that up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the power of what we're speaking of. And I love the way that it merges with you. I think it's so very important that you become your Sherlock to your Watson. And those crumbs create inquiry. That inquiry then forms curiosity. The curiosity creates contemplation that forms what we call hope. And that hope then merges into a belief system that can be nurtured. And then you pass that threshold into a knowing through experiential moments, your ability to develop and a relationship that is verifiable and repeatable, not a delusional state. As you said, you're like grasping for it. This is what we call within Taoism the bite of the spiritual dragon. You're forever chasing that. I saw
Oh,
grandma.
yeah.
I saw an apparition. I saw grandma. I had a vivid dream. I had a prediction. I see auras and colors and everything. And the problem is the deficiency. We use a cycle of merging these five elements. They're actually nine elements within the physical body that then raises your amplitude of imagination, which then creates anything. So for me, there is a backdrop. There's nothing more. My attention intention is looking at you. Everything else is just darkness. And if I change my attention to anything, it forms a condensing of what we call the perfection, the diamond of perfection. And it becomes a phosphorus white light. And that absorbs and admits everything at once because it's the reflection of the primordial mother in this material state. And so from that, it takes me but a second to breathe into that and miracles take place. Manifestation probability is affected because your attention and intention is drawn to that. And that's where the magic for a Taoist seeker or cultivation, once you acquire it, it becomes palpable. It can be repeatable at will. You can do it as a million times over because you're abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. There is nothing that limits you unless you want to go in the narrative that there's a karmic programming that something that is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless. All of a sudden, you have the trappings of the human condition and the limitations of, well, with that there's the electromagnetism, and you have to do this, then you have to do it for three other people, and this is all nonsensical because it's fear-based. That's not real. It's just like with the alchemy within Taoism, they want you to abstain from sex. They want you to be the all-knowing. When I teach alchemy within Taoism, that is just fundamentally bullshit. It's wrong. And this is why so many people get involved with Qigong practices, and it's a diminished no return where they don't get the results they're looking for because they get sidetracked with this limitation. You merge with that. We call it within Taoism the return, the immortal path of self-realization, crystallizing through the alchemy a material state. So you make it real as
I
do you.
wrote a book about that return. Fu. I didn't know what Fu was, and it came through, and they said it's the return in Tao. So actually, I have a book, Fu, the Return. of the magnetic human. So I love
Ooh,
that you just suggested. But on that note, I think there's something to be said about this belief in requirement that really holds people back, and I feel that that's what you're really saying, is that in many spiritual practices, there is a inherent set of beliefs where we're required to do certain things to attain wisdom, or we're required to have certain practices in order to feel the real state of our own vastness. And I think requirement is a hindrance to our natural greatness. And if we think about peace, peace is the state of non requirement. So when people are often jumping through hoops of requirement to get to a state of peace, it's the horse and the cart are moving in different directions.
I-
So to know that it's already our right, we already have access to all of this. That state of non-requirement for me was a key shift in how easy it was to step back into what we know is true. And I feel that that's what you're saying too, is that there doesn't have to be so many rules and regulations around what we do that can often lead us away from where we're trying to go. It's one thing to have self-discipline to make your divinity the focus of your life, but it's another thing to have so much self-discipline that the ritual and the practices are seen to be more powerful than your essence
Hmm.
that's participating with it.
No, I agree. I mean, both of us come from most likely similar experiences. I had a epiphany within seconds. I spent my teenage years as a bodybuilder, power lifter, and I was crushing things and lifting 800-pound stupid weights. By the time I'm in my late teens, then a voice came into my head and said, go and find meditation. In those days, in the 80s, as Lee and I confirmed, it's Hare Krishnas and yogis, hairy armpits, people eating alfalfa sprouts, dancing in the street. That kind of nonsense to me was nonsense. It was like, what's this voice telling me I need meditation? And that's the thing. It's like you and I had a fast track, and that happens for many people, but many people are also lost. If I had a dime for every time someone would come to me with what they consider a Kundalini experience, and I'm so energetically sensitive, and I'm an empath, and I'm all these things, yet they're not getting information that gives them guidance. They're just lost. There's a void, there's an emptiness. And that, from a Taoist alchemy perspective, is activating that. And then they remember, once that is activated energetically through their architecture. So you burn it into this architecture that is tangible as your physical body, because this is the currency that we operate in, the electromagnetism. So your unified state will present itself as crystallized as that, turning lead into gold. You see it. Like when I look at your aura, there's some incredible geometry that seems to be oscillating through your energy potential, phosphorus white light, clear evidence of a mainstream of gold within your aura, which is a very clear indicator of the ascended state that you're in, and you maintain that. And furthermore, all the geometry, the cubes and the diamonds and the squares and the all different types of craziness that I keep seeing when I look at you is just furthermore evidence of that palpability. And it just comes in forms that they happen in a fleeting moment. They're just like there, but I feel every different energy potential, which is part of that. So I agree with you. I tell people, you can listen to me in 5 minutes and be self-realized. You can obtain the 30 years I've experienced this stuff and be self-realized right now. And if you want to talk about neurologically, you just look at the mirror neurons and you replicate whatever you're experiencing. And that's how we want to dumb it down, as a neurological sort of like humanistic perspective, from a physicist perspective, enhancing that knowing of, what someone would call, 0 point unified entanglement of the spooky action that Albert Einstein was freaked out about. I mean, there's so many variables that keep validating what you and I have been teaching for decades, consciously, biologically, and furthermore, in past lives, bringing it to this present moment. And, you look at the ancient practices, and I find it really exciting because it empowers people. They want to return to it. They don't want to put their head down on a pillow, have a vivid dream, wake up and go, now I'm crazier than a shithouse rat. I have nothing to hold on to. There's no permanence that I can remember. And this is what we call the point of no return within Taoism. You detach to attach as this default where you are now operating autonomously as that. You don't have to think about it. It's just a resonance, just the way you're experiencing it and what you do through your own mastery. It's now. So anyone around you is going to have two effects that is very clear. They're going to love you or hate you until realize that's just the polarizing effect of electromagnetism.
Actually, there's a third one. Oh, I've just dropped my earbud. There's a third one, and it is invisibility. Because what I've come to realize is that you are either visible to people, and then there's that paradigm of love or disharmony, or you're just not visible in their reality at all.
Well, that's a mastery of the magic too. This is what we call shapeshifting.
Right.
The transformative rite of passage for a Taoist. We go deep into the magic, and you can alter states at will.
Right.
I give people sort of like infantile levels where, we play with something as simplistic as conscious and unconscious process. Anyone that starts on this journey should be aware that these mechanisms are very clear to commandeer your attention and intention. If you're emotional, you're suggestible, which furthermore leads you to things like hypnosis or trances or things of that nature, not to what we are speaking of. This is a different state. This is like entry-level stuff. I've got 6 kids. I taught them the basics, remote viewing, clairvoyance, things of that nature. And, you should understand fundamentally that you can be commandeered with your attention intention through this basic understanding of conscious and unconscious. And so, hypnosis is a great way to show someone instantly, hey, I could erase your name, have you not remember what just happened, and furthermore, have you access that instantaneously also. People need to sort of get every taste, and then you have this profound access, like the source information that Rebecca's channeling. And that is just on a whole nother league. This is not within this electromagnetism. This is not a fighting between the good and bad, up and down, yin and yang, left and right. This is a wholeness, and it is transformative. And it's not this sort of infantile sort of like process where, oh, well, wow, that's kind of exciting how you could commandeer someone's attention. But it's all that currency. The currency is the emotion. Right.
And sometimes it can be fun. Sometimes the masters, well, the aspects of self called the masters will come through, and they'll play a little bit with that with people, because it can be fun. It can be part of the fun of being in this world. Oh, this is how this works, and this is how that works, and yeah, you can change that, and yeah, you can shift that. But it's just another expression of the divine through material form, and it's all fun, but it's not the origin.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an effect, but it's not the source. And so I don't think there's anything really wrong with playing in those fields. I mean, it's fun. It's where the
Well,
magic is, right? It's magic tricks, and it's it's
reimagine.
wonderful. It's how this material reality works, and it's fascinating. We're here to play with that, but it's not the origin of it. And so for me, that's enjoyable, but it's not the end game. It's not the answer. I'm
Oh,
always looking for, well, where does that arise from? And yeah, it's not another piece to the puzzle. Like, what's the puzzle made of? That's what I was always interested in. But I can still give myself permission to play with the other things too. Why not?
I love the fact that your teachers are sort of humorous and sort of a little cheeky. My teacher, Latsu, who I commune with on a second-by-second basis, is very cheeky. He
Yeah,
finds it amusing that human beings are so self-absorbed. It's like, oh,
right.
what's happening? It's the end of the world. What's going to happen to me? What's that? And he just talks in frequency. So when you listen to his transmission, he will talk in the frequency, the highs and lows of all the different elements that are being presented throughout the cosmos that also happen inside of you. And now you
Right.
take advantage of, it's like the waves are coming in to your ecosystem. Now, if you hit that wave, you ride that wave, then you're going to experience these different elements and responses within your experience. And so,
Right.
I mean, he's very cheeky like that. So, you know, people are like, what's going to happen? He goes, just imagine you're like a grain of sand asking the beach, what are we doing today? Fall back into the beach and be realized. And people, this stuff
I
comes out
love
of my
that.
mouth, and I'm like, holy shit, you make me sound really smart. I'm just thinking,
I
and
love
this
it.
insight is that mastery that you're speaking of. And he gets very, very cheeky like that, but he also transmits, and it's a visceral, somatic,
Right.
kinesthetic experience. And people are like, holy crap, I just feel transformed. It's like I went through a car wash. And that's all it takes. What you're doing is exactly that. And it's undeniable at a subatomic level. You're never the same once you experience your transmission. And it's like,
That's
holy
true.
crap. It's like, I now have a chance to remember. And that's really the power of what this is remembering, returning to servitude, selflessness, and then that hallmark love. Well, it is universal, but you have to acquire that resonance and hold it. And most people don't have the container to hold that resonance. And that's why things are transitory when you get a bunch of I mean, the amount of students I have, healers, light workers, qigong masters, doctors of Chinese medicine, blah blah blah. I mean, it goes on, but they can't hold the resonance, so they go and they stay. They want to be defined as the next coming of Jesus, and they give someone a transmission and they get a healing, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm healed," and then a week later, it's like, "You loser! Like, where's the healing? It's gone. You're not. You're a charlatan. You're full of," because they need to understand to teach that individual that you now have to hold that resonance for it to be permanence. And if you can't hold it, it will be transitory. So if you have all this myriad of personality and all this stuff, and you're still on your journey of self-realization, you receive a healing and it's transitory. That's the very reason why. The permanence is part of being able to hold that resonance, and then they upclick their consciousness and it's theirs. I mean, that's how I witness it. Every time I witness it, and I've seen some crazy stuff, it happens instantaneously. And to hold it is for that person to go, oh shit, now I am aware of this, that nothing, it requires no participation from myself. And then they get caught up in their personality and they love the drama and victimhood is exciting. And, they play that game. And it's like, oh, I'm like, you like it. Like, how dare you say that? I want to be healed. No, you need to look in the mirror and go, I like it a lot, because you keep perpetuating the same thing and feeding it. So you're not whole. I noticed you mentioned about the being tired and you're not tired. This is something I remind people of. First thing is being able to embody and saturate this physical flesh as immortal. That's a Taoist alchemy like specialty, is crystallizing that. So you have Imperium over your 50 trillion cells. And now longevity is the purpose, because the longer you hold that resonance, you remember more within this re-up, and you can sustain it to help other people to raise their consciousness. I mean, that's the Taoist path is very simple. You're an ambassador to planet Earth, as is there's 1,000 different planets and material within this cosmos, and each one of them have their own communities of their own ambassadors. And this is just a Taoist methodology and how they integrate Taoist metaphysics. Everyone has their own way up the mountain. I always tell people, don't dismiss someone else's belief system, because then you dismiss yourself. Everyone can get up the mountain however they choose to. It all ends at the same point. But that's the magic of your mystery. Your mastery, your journey is to find whatever resonates. And man, you resonate, my friend. You really,
Thank you.
you have to
Well, I
say
think once you've climbed a mountain, you realize the game isn't to climb anymore, the game is to be the mountain.
right, right,
Where are we really going?
right,
Or are
right,
we really embodying? And then other people perhaps want to climb the mystery of your presence.
right, right. And your wisdom teachers, do they share more prophecy, past, present, future? It really varies. I mean,
It
uh,
does vary. I mean, I feel because we come mainly from a space of non-duality, that if people specifically need to know the possibilities for what's ahead, they'll share that. Otherwise, we tend to talk a lot about how things work. What are the mechanics for being here? How is consciousness really operating? What is the human experience? How do we allow ourselves to evolve or to step more into our greatness more easily? Um, Lots of things like that. You were talking about the cheekiness of one of your teachers or masters. We had another aspect of Saint Germain come through last year called himself Thomas. And we did a whole series called The Maverick, and we spent a whole hour talking about style and how in human experience, your style and the way you hold yourself and you create trends is actually seeding new beliefs for consciousness. So, we could talk about things like that in a very cheeky way. The more or audacious you are, and the more unapologetic you are with your own personal style, the more you are here influencing new beliefs in reality. So lots of different things like that. We're doing a new series starting next week or the week after about the body and the real functionality of the organs that are quite different to what is the current consensus of belief around them.
no,
So all sorts of things.
so
Yeah,
that's
I'm looking
interesting.
forward to that.
Within Taoism, it's a very simple model that you acquire the mental emotional state, and if you perpetuate that, it transmutes into physical element. It's a
Right.
descended experience that you materialize as
Yes.
a distortion, and that comes in the form of sickness. And the more you liberate the elements within all the major organs in the body, you create this knowing, and of course you elevate the imagination, which is critical to the portal of knowing, is being able to access that at will. And so this
Yes.
sort of just been going on within Chinese medicine, which really is a variable of Taoist alchemy. And from one of my teachers, Yellow Emperor, who was the creator of the Chinese culture, furthermore, his whispers from the universe that he created Taoist alchemy for that very purpose of immortality. And he
Mhm.
lived physically for 500 or 600 years, and then has, a permanence as an immortal, and is wisdom teaching on a daily. But that's the very infrastructure of Chinese culture as we know it today. And so that sounds fascinating how your teachers are teaching you. Is it a similar thing, or how do they look
I
at?
don't know yet.
Right. Okay.
Let's see what
They're
happens.
gonna give you
But
the
it's
dose.
interesting because I do have some experience working with TCM and acupuncture, and looking at the new. I had a different teacher emerge when I was working in that field, that was showing us how to remap some of the traditional acupuncture points for the evolution of the meridian system that was happening in the body. So that's all very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Fascinating. I'm always learning new things.
It is. It's like the student is the teacher is the student. The second you lose
Right.
sight of that, your consciousness just ceases. It's
Right. And I think that's such a beautiful point that you made, because I think as soon as I feel like I know something, and this is something that my masters shared with me many years ago when I first started channeling, they said to me, you have to be prepared to burn everything that you think you know. And they said, even if we come through and offer you some wisdom or some insight, you have to be willing to burn it. They said, because if you don't, you'll attach to the wisdom and you won't continue to expand.
It sounds to me like I think the Jade Emperor's getting in your ear. He's another teacher of mine.
Oh,
He,
really?
he always says this: when you accept you know nothing, you know everything. And furthermore, if you have to learn it, you don't know it. If you know it, you don't have to learn it.
Right. Right.
That experiential moment, that feeling that is goes beyond words, goes beyond the finite mind and the intellect.
Right.
It is a knowing, and that is
Yes.
embodied through that visceral, kinesthetic, somatic experience, like the one
And
that we've been oscillating in throughout this conversation.
right. And this is why I don't do anything twice. So every workshop or seminar or course that we run, it's just once. I never repeat things because then I see it as teaching it, and then I have to be willing to to burn it and move on to the next thing. So it's fascinating to me to witness people really resonate with certain things and then sit with it for some time
Yeah.
and then look for something else, or then look for something else. And what I do find, which is very encouraging actually, that's shifted quite a lot over the years that we've been doing this, is in the beginning I found that people would take some wisdom and then that was it. This is me for life. This is my belief system and this is what I'm going to stick with. And we don't see that as often anymore. And I'm not sure if you see this in your experience, but I feel that humans in general are more grazers when it comes to wisdom
Well, it's
these
the
days.
distraction. It's this, they're information consumers. They're not creators. They're just consuming more and more information. And from that, you become very limited because
That's true.
just one more course, one more thing. I had zero, I remembered the last 1,000 lives that I had before this one. And it oscillated between immortal states and physical form of a variable Taoist alchemist and wisdom teaching. And then, we can go into the variable frequencies within each lifetime that I also embody all these other things because we are all things and nothing.
Mhm.
So it just sort of like goes, okay, wow, this makes sense. And the reason that I start with the ancient practices that are consciously, biologically thousands of years old in this realm is because they're repeatable, they're generational, and you get results that are not delusion. And that's what people want. They want to be firm in their own knowing. And to do that, there is that cycle of gift as your offering. And furthermore, this incantation that I use all the time from the Jade Emperor is quite simple. A power abundant in its giving you will receive, unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transcending all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. And that communion that you and I just had, and it was all warm and fuzzy, expanding through our physical flesh, is that evidence of the power of what we're talking about. And your teachers bring it every time. Man, I'm getting high as a kite just hanging out with you right now.
Well, it's all part of the fun of being, the divine and the human simultaneously, right?
Right, right. You can't make that. I think when people witness any one of my channelings, I do it with my eyes open and it freaks
Same,
people out. It's like,
yeah.
you don't blink. No, this is just, I'm an OG channeler where back in the day, you want to see the emission of unification. I'll take a flame and put it over my hand when I'm just in that state, and it will not deform the flesh at all. I can hold it there for a minute or two, and people go, holy shit, this is real. Yes, it's very real. And it's undeniable. It's not an in between. And I think that that's where people get sort of misguided right now because there's so many people that just hang out and say, hey, I just woke up one morning and, 30 years ago, I would have someone who would be conflicted with a psychological disorder and they'd come to me looking for answers and I'd exercise those energies and they would start to remember who they are. as opposed to now, someone would just go, I woke up, I'm talking to the Palladians, and I just open up a YouTube channel and get 100,000 followers. I think it's amazing. But you need to be able to discern and affirm that this information is of the highest frequency. That's part of the mastery. And there's no right or wrong way, because you start somewhere. It's just remembering, expand. And so, you might get some low level nonsense that tells you to run to the hills in fear, and there's death and destruction and complete mayhem. That's that's okay. But the truth is, you're never going to get that from a high ascended state. There's going to be a unification. There's going to be a remembrance.
A unification.
Right. That's that kind of thing where, hang on a second, maybe I've let a little sprinkling of my personality get in here, that you must fear all people with red hats. And you know that that day is coming, that there will be a pinnacle of the merging of all things evil. And, you hear that and you go, okay, that's where you're at. Anytime
it generates a resonance, but it's a resonance of fear, really.
Right. Everything has that energy potential. Is it of the highest frequency? I would probably have a healthy conversation to have a healthy debate about whether that is of the highest frequency. And furthermore, what does it bear fruit-wise? And, once you commandeer an audience, they're going to collectively create that. That's the only way. The only way I get into a situation where I'm exercising an energy or a spirit or an entity or whatever they want to call it is because that person believes it. That's part of their infrastructure. It's like they're calling wolf, and these energies come in and go, hey, I think you need to learn a few lessons. Okay, is that the programming? Well, it seems to be the programming for you. You've activated your energy potential, yet you're still in conflict with your finite mind. And from that, you're dancing between one extreme and another within that polarizing effect. So you get this emerging of energy, but you're still struggling with the human condition, as you put it. And that brings rise to, you're a creator. That is your default. Well, what does that mean? It means that, if you're angry, you manifested that. You created and generated that frequency. Now you can experience it and realize it's transitory, or you can make it a permanence and attach it to a thought, feeling, and emotion. And then furthermore, dig a hole for yourself that keeps repeating.
And take possession of it, because humans love to possess things.
Yes. So that's the material. Come on now. That's the exciting part. You gotta enjoy this electromagnetism. It's like, if you're not into
I can experience things without needing to possess them, I think. I can experience anger without needing to possess it.
Right.
And I can experience material things without needing to possess them. And I think that's what keeps us walking lightly on the earth.
Well, that's that beautiful word, possession. What's very clear indicator for me is oppression, depression, possession. It goes in that order. And so the more people isolate, the more people have evidence that they need to be separate, is this ominous energy they keep feeding into, which can come from, past lives, situations, whatever you want to call it. If you make it very clear that it's just energy, and it has a vibratory frequential state, and that resonance, if held, you repeat it. Your mastery is showing people that I'm not embodying that. It's like a drive-by. It's a fleeting moment that is transitory. It's not permanence. It's not real. And that's where people get caught up. And I think that's the part where it gets exciting, when you teach them how to take that and move it like an icon on your computer screen and dissipate it. Normally we have a 2-second rule. And, it is a rule because you are ruling over this energy potential. To be aware is to be unified. You become that point of no return, where your very action, your very breath, your very thoughts are all a manifestation of divine word, will, light, love of the Tao. And so it doesn't matter. You can literally be in your personality and witness a healing at the same time. That is a unified state that people get to. I just show them their own path. But furthermore, just as we both admitted, it can have no infrastructure or structure whatsoever. And you can remember that. Yet, I think the complexity of the human condition makes it so that we are the catalyst, a conduit, and there are millions of people like us that help people remember that, you know, I'm still finding that center point. I'm chasing that spiritual dragon, and it's still presenting itself as, I need to hear the wisdom teaching of Rebecca. I need to, you know, experience it. And after listening to her teachers, you walk away and, like, you probably get this all day long. Oh my goodness, I experienced one of your transmissions and my whole life has changed. And it just took this one moment. And I literally, I didn't realize it. I had a physical problem. It's gone. And, you know, that's the magic of what you transmit here, is that ability to acquire that resonance. Do you experience a lot of those type of stories?
Well, maybe. I mean, I'm not really aware of feedback that much. It used to be an issue for me when I was a little bit younger, when I first started doing this, because I thought, oh gosh, no one's coming back to me, and no one's, you know, no one's continually seeking me out. And I thought that that was a reflection of perhaps the quality of what I was expressing. But what I didn't realize for some years is that the non-attachment to that feedback loop for me was quite helpful. And all of those people didn't come back to me because they didn't need to. Their lives went on in different directions. And it was interesting because once I let go of needing that validation, suddenly I got people writing to me saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know I saw you, you know, some years ago, and this happened and it changed everything. And it was really a reflection of my own state of awareness at that time. When I stopped needing it, I started to see it. I needed it to be valid and of value to myself rather than of value to other people. So I was grateful for that experience because it shifted me into I'm really doing this for my own deepening of awareness. And if other people benefit, that's wonderful.
And to that, I mean, this is
So,
the thing that people get it's the approval, because you're in lack of. Your need for
well,
someone to tell you that you're the next coming of Jesus. And
well,
that,
it's also to know that you're being effective. Am I
right.
having an effect? And so even that I had to let go of needing to have an effect, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's that part. We all go through it. Like when I experienced it for the
Yeah.
first time 30 years ago, I'm witnessing miraculous healings day in, day out. One point I got obsessed with exploding sebaceous cysts that people would have deep within the core of their body, raise it to the top of the skin and just pop it like a big zit. I was like, oh, I love that shit. It's like fun,
Gory.
a lot of fun. But that was, you witness it all. Tumors disappear, you know, it's unlimited, the potential.
Mhm.
So this kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And when I first experienced it, I was like, I can't let anyone know about this. I'm the only one. And then Latsu was like, the second you teach others, you expand and dissolve, and you share the teaching that I share with you, and all will be revealed. I'm like, oh shit, that sounds amazing. And of course, it was a crossroads. So it took me a minute, and I was like, oh, do I really want to teach people this stuff? And then once he solidified it in that sense, all of that, my approval of or needing someone to tell me I was the next coming of Jesus, just dissipated instantly. And like the way you do it, it's like, that's why I do psychic readings on people. And I love doing psychic readings because they're like, okay, we're in the strip in Vegas, and sometimes I take my kids down the strip and we play, you know, street magic day, and we'll do a bunch of crazy stuff and, you know, charge people up, get them all like expansive and blissful, and do some energetic tricks and whatnot. And, you know, I'll be like, you want a reading? And everyone's out partying, doing something on the strip. Sure, magic man, give me a reading. Why don't you? I'm like, look, I'm going to start. There's 9 energy centers. We start with the bottom. I'm going to give you a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical state. in about 20 seconds. They're like, sure. Yeah. 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 Go ahead. And I like starting at the bottom because the delusion is that they believe that it's not possible for someone to just walk up to you and read your energy, which gives them great insight to your mental emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do that, we would start with what we call the transpersonal point. Within Taoism, that's a dantian, which is an energy elixir field. From most ancient practices like Hindus, they call it a transpersonal point. That's energy center 1, which is the earth. Then I go to the second energy center, which someone would call the first chakra, the perineum. This is basically reveals the boundaries of the individual. They get a little squeamish, like, well, how the hell do you know I don't like sharing and I don't like people in my business? But furthermore, you're telling me I like being in other people's business. How the fuck do you know this? And I'm like, hey, I'm reading the menu. I'm not invested in this. This is the thing about information. I'm not invested in it. And once you get to the second energy center and people are like, you're giving me my sexual dysfunction and my ED and my issues with, circus midgets in the room while I'm having sex with my wife, all this weird shit, you need to stop. This shit is real. Yes, it is. That's why I start from the bottom. I don't want to get into too deep into the center point because then their shit will just unravel. And most people stop there. They're like, holy shit. How do you see that? How do you even know that? I am not knowing anything. This is the present moment. The information is there. I'm just reading it. And I imagine you experience something similar, or perhaps you have a different take on how you access the information. But
There's that too. Yes. I used to see people in person in like a natural health clinic or in a clinic setting, and that's when I would use those sorts of faculties, but don't tend to do too much of that these days.
yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't, I do it for fun with the kids. They learn how to read
Yeah. Yeah.
and love being able to read people's energy. And it,
Yeah. Yeah. I taught my son to do that too. It is lots of fun.
yeah, right. It is. The kids love it. And you change, you shift someone instantaneously. But it's one of those things that it becomes undeniable. You're like, hang on,
Right.
okay, so hang on, my eyes are open. I'm not in some ashram with people chanting and incense kind of nonsense. How in Tao's name does someone like you, who looks like a retired bikie, be able to share this information? It's crazy. And that's really what consciousness for my path is, giving
Right.
people a conscious shift and going, oh, that creates inquiry. I never thought that was possible. Holy shit.
Well, I think it's making the divine human as well.
Hmm.
So, and I think that's really important. That's a big part of what I feel we do and talk about a lot is that the human is in essence a divine expression. And to make it human, I remember when I first started, being a little bit more available publicly, I had quite a few people that would say to me, "Well, what are you going to call yourself?" Or, "You're going to have a different brand or whatever." And I thought, well, I'm just going to be Rebecca Dawson because I want people to see that this is a human thing. And we have these capacities and we are creators and we have access to all of this. So, that was really interesting, and because I was so young when I started too. I have a feeling we're of a similar vintage actually, but, because of some of the dates you were talking about when you first started. But when I started, the only people that were doing what I was discovering was happening for me were like, in their 60s and 70s, and they were in spiritualist churches, and they all wore white with big crystals and, and they were very learned and wise and long in the tooth. And I was the antithesis of that. I was out drinking beer and going to pubs to hear bands play, and it just didn't fit. And at first, I thought, well, I have to try and become that or shape myself into that somehow. And that will happen over time. And then, of course, I realized that it was perfect that it didn't fit because And I love that this is what's happening now in the spiritual landscape, in the awakening landscape, is that it's everyday people who don't fit the description. And I just love that, because it's like humanity claiming itself as that powerful consciousness again, you know?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's exactly what happened to me. It
Like, we
was,
don't need, the whole bells and whistles, and it's just that it's as human. It's like you as who you are, with your sense of humor and your way of saying things, and your personality and all of that. And it's the same for me with mine, and that's enough.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's just about reclaiming that, and making yourself
Yeah,
whole. And I just find that it sounds to me like you had a similar experience, but it's so dramatic. I was
yeah,
a bodybuilder and powerlifter that became a spiritual teacher and
right.
and a priest, which is complete nonsense because I didn't even believe it. But I said, I'm an atheist. And I was like, I didn't even know what that really meant. But like, I don't believe in any of this shit. It's like it just is what it is. But to get slapped in the face and to recognize that frequency and it's undeniable,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like looking for meditation back in those days was like just ridiculous. You couldn't find
yes,
classifieds.
yes,
I didn't even know what that was. I didn't realize I was doing it. And then the second I was in the space of it, it was, slam dunk. And again, the teachers that I had were old, dusty, old, guru. And the woman that she experienced was
dusty.
grandmaster. Well, it's true. It's like a grandmaster. She was a grandmaster, and I was sitting in a rec center in the middle of nowhere in some ghetto with noises and shit outside. It was crazy. I thought I was a gorilla. People would be intimidated by the way I looked. Yet I was afraid I was going to get shanked or killed by this mad neighborhood. And I walk into the rec center and attempt to sit down, and I look like some overgrown ape trying to scratch his ass in a lotus position. And I'm looking around the room, and there's half a dozen misfits. And you go, this shit ain't going to work. I was told that this is called stillness or mind. My mind is crazy. I'm thinking I'm going to get stabbed and killed back in my car. Bad things are going to happen. And then this little guru, and I'm over just in pain, my back. And this woman stands there, and she's standing up to me, and I'm sitting down. She's up to here. She stands in the middle of this little half circle of misfits, beggars can't be choosers. And she goes, with all this noise, all this shit outside. I'm like, I want you to listen to my voice. And I'm like, eyes open, going, yeah, lady, I'm listening. And then everything will fall away. And then for the next 15 minutes, it was this. And I'm looking around going, it is silence. Holy crap. This is the most powerful shit I've ever experienced in my life. Screw this weight training shit. This captures mastery. How do you stop sound? And I'm just sitting there going, holy crap. And then slowly her voice faded back in after about 15 minutes. I was like, I'm hooked. And then, of course, I found the dusty teacher, like you said. And he was offering a channeling workshop through the classifieds. I call my kids, it's like a newspaper. You ever heard of that? What's that, Dad? A newspaper. And, you just get into it. You go, okay. Next day, go straight to a channeling guy. And he looked at me like, you sure you're in the right place, bro? You are an overgrown ape, and you see the room. It's like people wearing yogic pants and they're eating alfalfa and all that kind of nonsense. And it was so extreme. And I instantly channeled Letsu. And the guy literally had a stroke. He's like, screw you. How is it that some overgrown ape comes in here and literally harnesses what I've been consciously 60 years looking for? It blew my mind. And this is the types of things that you want to hear because it happens to anyone. It can happen to anyone. And that's why I always say, just as you probably do the same, you could be realized instantly. And it became more mind-blowing by the second. The next day I was taught clairvoyance, banged that out straight away, revealed that he's some psychopath trying to create a cult. And when I gave him the outcome of that message, because he goes, read me. I've taught you how to do it. Give me a reading. What do you get? And I was like, well, there's an energy telling me that you're some, you know, deviant that wants to steal everyone's energy, you and your girlfriend, and you've been doing it for years, and you do it through these workshops. Whoa, 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 whoa. What? And he couldn't believe it. And this is how quickly you remember. And I was more excited about the fact that it's like, is that shit, was that right? He's like, whoa, 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 let's talk about this in another room. And he's like, you don't need to share this with anybody. I was like, look, I'll tell you, this energy is telling me this. He goes, what? If you don't stop what you're doing, you're going to die. And he's like, I can't. This thing is giving me this power. I can do all this remote viewing and all this other. I'm like, listen, I'm just a messenger. I don't know anything. This is what it's telling me. The fact that you're telling me this shit is real, after I've also activated some guy who's in a white robe, who's called Lao Tzu, who's now talking in my freaking head, I think I'm 3 cents short of $1. I'm about to have a nervous breakdown. And he goes, yeah, this is real. And 6 months later, I held him in my arms and he died from brain cancer.
Wow.
And, these are the types of things that hit people so hard. And you want to do that. You're like, this doesn't make sense. Just like you said, hey, I was out partying, I was doing this, and I should be some next coming of Jesus with the robe. And, no, that's not how it works at all. And the more you are receptive or resistant, actually, the more resistant you are, the more you receive in that overwhelming realization. And that's when you need to surrender.
Mm. Mm. That's right. I love that you just described Lao Tzu in there in the white robe too, because that's how my masters appeared to me as well, in white. That's how I
Yeah.
first started. Yeah.
It's like an emission of resonance. Like when you see there's a certain ascended colors that are very clear as to where that frequency is coming from. And once you start merging up into, gold, platinum, silver, these are very clear evidence of where you're at in your own transmission and what you're bringing in. But it's like, I don't like to front load people with that. They need to acquire it through their experience, and they need to be able to explain it to me. So instead of giving them an infrastructure, that's there. It's always there. But you need to be able to create it, then explain it to me through your own experience that you've developed these skills, and then you can hold that resonance. And Lao Tzu comes in that way. And then, it just went from that to watching the physical healing, gangrenous flesh going back to pink in color. This is all one day after another. Then I had a nervous breakdown, what they call a dark night of the soul. Once I experienced that, I went through 5 days of every thought, every feeling, every emotion. And honestly, on day 3, I was like, never thought of suicide, but I think I want to kill myself. Like I'd go into a movie theater and attempt to distract myself, and something as benign as a naked woman, which should excite any virile man, walked on the screen. I puked in front of the guy that was sitting in front of me. A visceral response. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me at all. Why would I want to puke because I'm seeing a naked woman on the screen? It makes no sense. And it was like a transformative thing.
Mm.
And after about 5 days, I got hold of that teacher. He's like, oh, man, that's amazing. This is what we call a breaking. Screw that. Screw that. No. I don't want a breaking ever again. But,
Oh, but they're the best. The shatterings.
Right?
Because that's when we move beyond the containment of that current state of persona or identity.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many of those have you had personally?
Oh, a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I have the expectation that I won't experience that again. I sense that I will continue to experience those things. What I do find though is now when they happen, they're not as long. It can be half a day or it can be a day. And because I've experienced it before, I know, okay, this is another death going on today. And so I give myself permission now to just sit with it instead of trying to fight it or stop it or do anything about it. But, it's really intense. It's like a fever of the soul, isn't it?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely insane. I had that one, and then Latsu taught me that with any human timeline, they can have up to 9. And I'm
Is
like,
that right?
"Yeah," and I said,
Oh,
"I'm good. I'm good."
okay, I'm probably on about 6, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I said, "I'm good. I don't." And he's like, "Doesn't seem as though you had the express version." I'm like, "Oh, thank you. I appreciate that." It's like there will be no more of these experiences for you, and I haven't had one since. But it
Okay.
was, I mean, someone as excitable and as confident as I am just in my own knowing before I experienced this stuff, I never once thought of self harm. And to be in that contemplation of really, and all the years I've worked with people that have crossed that line, they always want back in. They're like, "Oh,
Mm,
that was a mistake. I didn't make." We're a little bit out past that at this point. And so you have these conversations with them, and they're like, "I was lured in. It wasn't what I thought it was." Yes, this is something that you need to be clear on. And you get lured into the idea that it'll make everything better. Just
mm,
let it all go. And that's the delusion. And a lot of people get caught up in that stuff. And of course, you move on and you create
mm,
the next experience, or you become earthbound. And that's an interesting one when you sit there. I mean, I remember this one woman, it's 11 years now since she took her own life. And she's just happy to be in purgatory and just sit there in the earth plane and witness everyone's sorrow and sadness of her own loss. And you're like, man, how is that cool? But she's also still being commandeered by another entity that gives her no joy or happiness whatsoever. It's just like dampened. And from a visual effect, it's a lockdown of all your energy centers. And this energy sort of overgrows on the ability for them to transmit. And again, furthermore, into their own experience, they're calling on this as part of their own journey, their own remembrance. And it happens, and it's completely okay. But
It's
is
all
that
just variations of human experience, I guess. And that's part of the genius of the Earth design is the incredible diversity of experience that we can have.
right?
It's incredible, just biologically how we're so varied. There is a point of differentiation between each and every one of us, and that is, the duality to the essence of the oneness that is the same in all of us.
Yeah,
It's kind of amazing. It's
right.
amazing, this paradox of differentiation, but sameness that we all exist as.
So,
Amazing.
so your teachers keep you out there in good old, Tennessee or Memphis or wherever it is.
For the
Does that
time being. Yeah.
that what where have you been attempting to get back to the West Coast?
Um I've looked at a few different places here. I'm here in Memphis because my partner was working here in Memphis, and now we're both remote, so we can kind of be anywhere. So we've spent quite a lot of time looking at different places we'd like to live, but as life would have it, none of those things have eventuated. So I'm moving into more of a peaceful acceptance that perhaps this is the best place for me to be right now. Well, it must be because this is where I'm here, and there is such a burgeoning creative consciousness here. So perhaps I'm here to play with that.
Yeah, I mean, you have a new bestie out here on the West Coast, and we have a retreat.
Awesome.
A retreat center where basically, you know, I like to collaborate with people. They just set up a situation, ship in about 60 people, get them high as a kite, transform them with your own mastery, and enjoy the fruits of that labor that comes in this energy potential, the currency.
Love retreats.
Right, right. You might go, all right, yeah, I'm gonna take Stan up on that, put out a workshop, we'll get 60 people in there, and boom. Next thing you know,
Yeah,
I think I moved out to Nevada. How is that happening?
sounds fun. Well, I've got another friend who'd like me to move out that way into Las Vegas. So I
And
haven't really spent any time in Nevada, but I would like to explore it. I hear the
yeah,
energy is
yeah.
quite fine.
Well,
And
it's in,
fine energy can be directed in any way.
well, yeah. I mean, I love doing the casinos. I'll go in there and just read all the hot spots, the power centers, the vortices, and then give people sort of the combination of where these entities or spirits are forming, because you go
Oh.
into it and you use the geometry, how they lay it out, because
Mhm.
they pay people like myself to create a feng shui for loss. They want
Right.
people to lose every cent that they own. And so
I'm sure.
people think that they don't have, people like myself that teach people how to move the energy to get their prescribed result. They're delusional. The geometry shows you that instantaneously. It's
Mm,
mind blowing.
fascinating.
We'll put that stuff out there. Each casino has its own right and wrong way how to enter, how to obtain the frequency of an actual win by doing certain things within the entities that are holding that space, which is exciting. I love playing with that.
It's kind of amazing, isn't it, this world we live in? It really is a playground for energy and consciousness. I think the quest, if there is one for us, is to is to relax more into the greatness of how to master all of that so that we can really play and create some amazing new things.
Yeah, yeah, you
Not just for our own personal experience, but for humanity.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You'll have to get your partner to go. You know what? It's time to just one-way ticket. We just get a car and just. This is
Yeah.
our out. This is it. We're getting the message.
Right.
We listen to our teachers. Time.
Well, I keep thinking there must be a reason that I'm here where I am, and interestingly, where I live in Memphis is on a particular part of the land where a lot of the lynchings used to happen, and just next to where we are is the Trail of Tears, which is where all of the uh, original people were moved across into Oklahoma. So it's a real hotspot for
Oh,
things that have happened.
oh, yeah. I'm getting a nice little abbreviated fast forward version there. Wow.
It's
Wow.
amazing. So I'm sitting here, doing channelings and running workshops and seminars online from this location. So there must be something in that.
Well, it's in the air. There's a lot of pain and suffering and trapped, as someone would call it, sorrow.
Trapped. Yes, that's the energy I tend to feel here when I wake up in the morning into the space. I feel that, interestingly. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah.
it's um it's time to move right along, guys.
Yeah, I feel like I've established enough expansive energy, and it'll all align when I'm meant to be somewhere else. So we'll see. That's
Viva, Viva Las
Viva
Vegas!
Las Vegas. There you go.
You do one workshop and you're hooked. Trust me, that's how I do it.
I hear it's a very creative energy there. Mhm.
Mm, yeah, yeah. It's definitely changed, but it's also, if you are subscribing to the obsession and addiction element or facet of your personality, this can be devouring in a,
Ooh.
in all consuming. And so, you have to be, in a place where you're not subject to that, or your attention intention will instantly be, as Bob Monroe would put, loosed,
Mhm.
absorbed, and then you just become more separate.
So
So,
it's a masterclass in in non-desire, is that right?
Well, it's there's nothing wrong with desire. I never, any person I've ever dealt with that claims they're an addict, I get them to realize very quickly that's not the case. It's just a tool that they've used up until this point. And when
Mm,
they reclaim that energy, holy shit, there goes the crack pipe, the alcohol, the pot. It serves of no value. There's a point where the psychonautic experience is great, but it's an external element for you to find yourself. I teach people how to create their own DMT experience that goes on for days on end without
right.
using external.
Yeah.
It's all within you. And when people realize they can do that at will,
Yeah.
they're like, "Holy shit, I want more of this." I'll save myself a bunch of money buying weed and alcohol and these psychonautic drugs, LSD and things of that nature, because they're transitory. They don't
Mhm.
hold a permanence. So they get a taste and then they want more, and they go, "Oh, that's not going to
Yeah.
happen without the weed, without the alcohol, without." And look, they're all tools. They'll bring you to a certain point of awareness, and listen when your teachers are saying, "Okay, you've drunk, 5 barrels of alcohol. That's enough. It's not serving you any purpose. Now you're just disconnecting." At one
It's
point,
that revolving door.
yeah,
That's what we call it, the revolving door of awareness.
yeah, and
It's,
you
not
have to.
something that's sustainable. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because if you're not embodying, and one of the first things that as a Taoist priest you do is there's this particular method that you have to master where you remove the alcohol from an alcohol bottle and put it into water. And if you're just delusional, you're like saying, "Oh yeah, I can do this," and I'm doing it. The end result is then you crack the bottle open and you drink a full bottle of vodka in 30 seconds. And if you're really doing it, then it's going to have zero effect. But you can also transmute it at will into a recycled energy. But
Mhm.
furthermore, if you remove the alcohol, it's like drinking water. But if you're delusional in your mastery, you could potentially have your stomach pumped or die of alcohol poisoning or who knows what. But that's where you get tested on your own mastery, which is that beautiful oscillating symbiotic effect of yin and yang, where you take the temperature, the hot, the cold, and you merge that and you're able to transmit it at will. I do a lot of that type of training with my students where I'll get a sauna, have a training facility where I have a sauna at 2:30. You sit in there for 45 minutes and transmute that yin energy. And if you're not, you're going to cook yourself. Furthermore, you're going to be well done. And then the same thing goes for the yin, is being able to drop in. I'll sit in 36-degree temperature for 40 minutes, 50 minutes. I feel like I'm in a hot tub. It's fun, fun, fun till daddy take a T-bird away. But these are transmuted states of awareness that crystallize into material. They're not
Mhm.
diluted states. Oh, yeah, I can do this. And then really, okay, show me. You know, I hadn't lifted in 14 years. I walked straight back into my gym and I just squatted a 400-pound squat for 10 reps, never touched a weight in 14 years. Now that is a state of awareness. You just do it.
Yeah.
And people are like, holy crap. But even when I was back in the day, I would get under 800-pound squats with no warm up because it's a delusion. It's all part of a separation. You're not pyramiding up to this heavy weight. I mean, there's no logic to that. What I'm going to warm up to get up to that. You're never going to get there. Your potential is now. And I think fundamentally that's what I used a lot within that journey of discovering who I really am from that. But it's now. It's not from the past, it's not from the future. It's embodying that state, and
Yeah.
that's mastery.
It's
And
the only place that, everything is available. It's in the present moment.
right, right. It's like so powerful, so freaking powerful. And they're just, in my opinion, there cannot be enough of you. You are sharing this wisdom teaching and changing people's lives. And I know you're like, I don't really go looking to validate whether that is. I can tell you right now, you're doing it, and you're doing it in the thousands. And that's just one OG to another. My own information. I'm not proclaiming that as being your truth. It's
Well,
just what
I see you and you see me. So thank you.
real recognize real, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Recognition. That's what the master said. The year of 2025 is the year of recognition, which is bringing resonance into the human connection. I
Yeah,
recognize you. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, a lot too was very clear. It's going to become more subdued, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" There'll be more grounding and maternal awareness, and this intuitive state, which results in humanity connecting with empathy. And that just results in effortless, unseen, like, oh, we need World War III. It's not going to happen. Oh, we're going to have all this financial stuff. It's not going to happen. Oh, this horrible dictator is now the president.
Feel
That's
that we've crossed that threshold.
right,
Uh, as I hear that you feel as well. I think that that threshold has been crossed.
right,
Mhm.
right. And this person that everyone perceives as ominous is actually going to bring more unity. And people are like, that sounds ridiculous. I hate this guy. This is how dysfunctional you are and where you need to go to get your own healing. This is how deficient you are. But people keep looking at this stuff. I couldn't care whether it's red, white, blue, or purple. Look at the energy. I'm looking at the energy. I'm not interested in the personality of what it is. The energy is very clear. It's a unified energy, and it's undeniable. And furthermore, I've had many Schumann resonance scientists that have had exactly the same outcome. Lao Tzu said, "We're moving from 12 to 18 hertz," which, if you were standing on planet Earth right now, it should be 7.8, which is an alpha theta state. You're right there. So if you had no personality, you could merge with that resonance of planet Earth as you are a micro of a macro and be blissed out and unified and one. But the very but word is you have a personality. So now it's been commandeered with this artificial insemination that is going on through the mind, and it's bringing the hertz up to 12 to 18 hertz, which is high beta. It's like take high myopic focus, add caffeine, personality, whirlwinds of disorder, and you're highly anxious and stressed out of your freaking mind. That's where the human condition is now moving into what Lao Tzu has called the 40 to 60 hertz. Now I witness physical healings at 40 hertz, 100, 400 hertz. It defies a lot of the skepticism or the construct that people determine what is a conscious frequency, which some guy named David, what's his name? I don't know. He was a scientist that had this chart. A lot of people use that chart from a brainwave state to determine
Mhm.
where we're at. I just know that once I hit 40, and I've been measuring my brainwaves for years, I'll see physical flesh go back to one wholeness, whether it's a gash, a broken bone, whatever. And I can see it also at 100 or 400. When Lao Tzu gets it, like through me physically, it gets up to 400. And I'm like cooking, like, holy shit, I'm in a sauna. And it's like, holy crap. And then, again, I witnessed the same thing. So it's like, I'm always hearing him. And then people are like, you're a priest. How come you're swearing? This is your very deficiency, right? Your need to control the narrative by telling me that I'm swearing is the very deficiency that you need to address through your own surrendering of your judgment of yourself. And people are like, whoa, that makes complete sense. Well, yeah, because it's nothing more than an energy that you can pick up and determine whether it's yin or yang, or furthermore, if you're in a polarizing effect, whether you believe it's good or bad. It's like all this stuff I believe that you and I are teaching people, Rebecca, is simplistic down to this. Is your glass half empty or full? And then it all just becomes real. It's like, you want more of the same? You want more, boy, Oliver Twist. May I have some more? May I have another, sir? Sure. And that's what that mirroring effect of the universe that really has no moral compass. It's now. It's like, hey, I want to experience more wanting. I want $1 million. Okay, the universe goes, coming right up. I'm your genie. What does that mean? Well, I will give you what it feels like to experience wanting $1 million. Wow. Well, but you are commandeering your reality, my friend. So I want a healing. I will give you the experience of what it feels like to want a healing. You need to be a little bit more consciously affirming what it is that you're doing. It's like now moment. Like when I witness healings, it's now. I am the now moment. That means that when I say heal, either in my mind or audibly, that's exactly what happens. Because I am all things. I don't have to go, oh, please, Latsu, can you help me with this energy? Now, initially, that was part of the progression. But if you're the now moment and you're nothing, the commandeering of your attention intention creates and forms everything instantly. So heal is
That's right.
healing is a
Healing
healing.
happens in the instantaneous moment. It's not a
Right,
process. It's hard for people's minds sometimes to grasp that healing is not a process.
right. But I love the curiosity and the journey of
Yeah.
the magical, mystical ride of all this stuff. And as a Taoist, I love all that ancient ritual stuff because it helps solidify knowing. And once you master it, you go beyond it. I
Yeah.
used all the stuff I was taught within the monastery, a monastic path. And then, Latsu was always commandeering and refining what some techniques are. Toss that out. That's bullshit. Some human beings creating it. This is it. Then furthermore, through your mastery of the resonance, you just instantly create it. There's no like processes. It's just now,
Wow.
you know,
Wonderful.
you know.
Wonderful.
So it seems to me like you've got some similar teachers that
Well,
are
yeah, I was just reflecting as you were speaking. I yearned so much to be part of a teaching or some kind of organized philosophy when I was younger and I first started doing this. And it just didn't happen for me. Everything that I attempted to become involved with or engaged with to have that kind of framework for guidance it just used to evaporate. So it's interesting. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm thinking, gosh, in some regard, there's a part of me as a younger self that really would have loved to have had that. But I can also see the merit in my own experience of not having any of that. So I had to kind of find my own way, and therefore completely trust everything that was emerging from me. Um, yeah, it's interesting. It's lovely sharing the different ways that we've both come to the wisdom that we express at this moment. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's fascinating. As a kid, I was a latchkey kid. My mom was just trying to survive. We wouldn't
Oh,
know.
that was just kids in the 80s in
Right.
Australia, right? Or
You know,
70s and 80s. Yeah.
it was not, I would go into the
Same.
movies by myself on a bus into George Street in the middle of Sydney at the age of 8, and by myself. I'd buy a movie ticket. It was like 90 cents. And
Yeah.
I'd entertain myself with the money that I had generated from my paper run that I had since I was 6 years old. Now, there's no way in Tao's God green earth I would allow any of my kids to go out with me. I've got kids that are 12, 10, 9, 6, 4, and also, and like, that's not the same world that we live in right now. It just isn't, unfortunately. It,
Well, we worry
and
so much more
it's
now, I
just not the same.
think, than we used to.
Well, yeah, but I mean, when we were kids, it's like, hey, this is easy. It's like, and I was left the imagination, the fact that I was an only child to a single parent gave me this ability where I spent most of my childhood literally sitting around like, communing tables of like 30 radical feminists just talking shop. So I was like the only what appeared to be yang energy in the room, which I was just
Mm.
I was just merging with the yin presence, that maternal state that I naturally was aware of. And so I was listening to all these conversations about what is the potential of all things, these academic individuals. My mother was just reinventing herself, creating. You need an education to create anything, and so you listen to all these intellects, these academic types, and they're all pontificating over reality over a glass of wine, and it was just intriguing for me, as a young boy.
Wow.
I'm listening to this stuff, and they'd think like, this kid, why is this kid here? Like a lot of these crazy. It's like there's something wrong with him, and they'd be like, I'd look at my mother and go, is he gay? And I'm like, wow, that's how you form your reality. It's just because I was obsessed with drawing bodybuilders and being in absolute obsession with the muscularity, which I in turn acquired through my own stuff. But it's like, this guy must be gay. He hangs around a bunch of women that talk about nothing but liberation of the feminine mind and society accepting the merging of women as individuals and equals, which was definitely a crossroads back in those days. But it's like to judge a young boy from his ability to listen and absorb, and he must be gay. There's something wrong with him. He should be out there throwing rocks at windows or some shit like that. It's weird. And you watch it, and it's so funny because you form that, and in that imagination, I had nothing more than just the imagination. And so my daddy was Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tom Cruise, all of those above, Richard Gere. These were the four masculine versions that really didn't amount to much. But I always knew that, why are people saying that there's something wrong with me because I only have one parent? I felt pretty good. Nothing wrong with me. I have zero problem other than, dealing with the conflict of bullying and whatnot. That was another story. Yeah, you come to that realization. You go, wow, well, that makes sense. That was a crossroads here. Yeah. And then you regress back to it. And even at the age of 4, I was looking through my hand into the room in the other, the wall through into the other room.
Oh, yeah.
Imagination. This is how it starts. And it becomes real. And
Well, imagination and intuition,
right.
are they the same?
It's exactly the same. But that's where a lot of people get caught short. And once you oscillate and resuscitate the elements within the physical body, your imagination will come online instantaneously. That's the thing I love about these rituals, is that it's all been done before. The methods are here. And so sometimes people need a little bit more infrastructure, the method to the madness. And when you use that method that millions of people before you have, you go, holy crap, this works. I finally have insight, which is what everyone wants. They want a little insight, and then they realize they need no insight, and they need to get rid of the insight once they realize they have insight. It's like, let go.
Right, that's it.
And so that insight is nurtured, and that comes from coming across incredible beings like yourself. They bring it, and people go, holy shit, this is real. And I whatever it is that I'm experiencing around Rebecca, I feel whole. I feel all-knowing. I feel like I have come home. And it's that beautiful maternal state that you share with everyone. And then they remember that empathy is so congruent. It's so necessary for the human experience. This is how we spread that love when we sit with that. And it's not a hallmark throwaway nonsense. It's you.
Well, people will remember more what they feel rather than what they heard, for sure.
It's magical. Well, I imagine I've got the hook coming out. I can tell you're ready for your next experience. And
I just heard Siri talk to me from the other side of the room, which was very strange. So it was almost like something's talking to me that I didn't activate.
Zuckerberg is listening to you. He's selling your information to China right now.
I hope so. Yeah, I don't mind that being dispersed out there. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, yeah. So, in closing, I'm going to say this has been absolutely magical and exciting to be able to share time with you, and
It's
for you.
been wonderful. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. I've
Yeah,
enjoyed the sharing of the wisdom and hearing your unique experiences and perspectives as well. It's just it's so beautiful. It's like seeing the same thing from a slightly different angle and it just amplifies your own awareness. So thank you. I think these conversations are so important in the world. So thank you for initiating that.
yeah. That's the perfection, the diamond of perfection. We just have facets of that diamond, and
Right.
that's it. That's the simplicity of it. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to share your social sphere and interweb experiences and where people can find you for this wisdom teaching. I want my students, disciples, 126s, subscribers, everyone to go out and immerse themselves in what Rebecca is offering. And furthermore, before we close out and you want to have your final word, what is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Mm, what a great question. We would say the all-pervading existence and life in all things.
Wow. Hmm. Oh, I love that. Wow. Wow.
We just try and remind ourselves of our part in that, I feel. Yeah.
And I've done hundreds of these podcasts and never got the same answer, as I should know. That,
It's a
but
great question to ask.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's perfection. In closing, would you like to share anything with the audience? Were they going to make? I'm going to make sure they find you. Is there anything that you want to specialize in? I know there's a lot of teachings that you have. Do you do one-on-ones, that kind of thing, or what are the deeper
We
teachings?
we do one-on-ones, actually. I think we're one of the few channelers out there that still do them. So we do them, and we do a number of different courses. We've got one coming up about the body, but actually, a lot of our messages are freely available on YouTube or through the website as well. So feel free to explore. We're always bringing something new, and yeah, just really delighted to be here with you and share the space. And beautiful to witness and experience some of the synergies in our childhood experience too. That was kind of wonderful.
Fair dinkum, mate. Fair dinkum.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah, it
Okay.
such a great time. So I want to thank you for spending your time with us today, Rebecca. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your host,
Yes.
and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.